great guests. So leaving you in great company.
Great. Hey guys. So we're welcoming Hristo today, and it's absolutely fantastic to have you here joining us. As we were mentioning, we've got 42 teams in Spotlight this year. I'm not sure if all of them will be able to join the call, but the ones who are able to join, we've got Hristo for the next hour and a half. And we'd really like to turn this into a session of storytelling and learning experience from someone who all of the starters are pretty much in fundraising mode, in fundraising mindset. So in regards to squeezing the most of that part of your journey, I think to share at least the problems, the pains, the challenges, what expectations. So we'll just take one step at a time to discuss this. But basically, just to highlight the fact that in regards to fundraising stories, this is one of the things that's interesting for all participating teams. And of course, the inspiration of yes, we can. Central and Eastern Europe is hot, and is one territory that's not to be missed in regards to innovation and to what could potentially come out of here. So I would love to hear yourself in terms of introducing yourself the way you'd like to, and then I'll jump with a couple of warm-up questions. The floor will be theirs, will be the founders in the remaining time. But Hristo, if you'd like to tell us a bit about yourself, about Payhawk, and basically your expectations of today. What your initial thoughts that you'd like to address to the founders, or your initial "Hi guys" message.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me today. So my name is Hristo Borisov. Just wanted to make sure you can hear me well, and there is no issues with the audio. And one question before we start. So usually the fundraising we talk about is very early investment, I believe, right?
Pre-seed to series.
Okay.
Anything, yeah, anything between.
Perfect.
We're talking about the future as well. So
okay.
I think nothing is particularly exclusive.
Okay, perfect. Good. So maybe I can start with sharing my background. So I'm coming from an engineering background. Started my my experience, professional experience as an engineer. Spent 4 years in a company called Telerik till 2010. And then I became one of their director of products, leading off their cloud and mobile strategy for a few years. We turned out to be one of the most successful exits in Bulgaria still today, $263 million in 2014. We got acquired by a public US company called Progress Software. And then I spent 4 more years at the public company, directly reporting to the founders of Telerik and leading a team of 12 product managers working with 170 engineers. So I like to say I'm a product person. I love building products, and I like working with engineers, UX, and strategy. And so 2018, together with our most talented engineer, I suggested, let's go and build the next company. I was feeling good at the existing company I was at, but retiring at 30 was not my thing. I felt there is so much more to be built and so much more to happen. So, and the funny enough is, I had my first daughter. She was born, and on the same day, I told my wife that I'm actually going to quit in a month from now after my notice period, and then I will go start a startup, which wasn't very, well received. But after that, and I think she now really loves the decision we made. So I decided that, starting a startup, there is no right time to do it. You just, I felt that the more I stay in that company and with the family, the more I'm going to get used to it. And then my dream for starting a company is going to go away. So I decided that every day with which my daughter is getting older, I'm going to be going away from my dream and thinking about her dream. So I decided, oh, now is the right time. So we started the company in 2018, and with my co-founder, he was one of the most talented engineers at Telerik, and I told him, we have to build a big company. That's the goal. I mean, we are not going to be a lifestyle business. So to create a big company, in reality, you only have to do two things: solve a big problem in a very big market. And then everything is a function of that: fundraising, size of the companies, valuations, and so on. I mean, everything else doesn't matter. And something that I really love about early stage companies is that the world is a canvas. You have a whiteboard and you can be whatever you want to be. That is the really creative part and very productive part. Of course, you need to be very fast at nailing a niche and focusing on something so that you can actually be practical. So our fundraising story is actually, I think, very telling, because what happened was that I felt that the next big companies would be focused on intersection between industries, right? It's not going to be just SaaS companies or just fintech companies. You really need to build something that is in the intersection of multiple disciplines. And we said, we are coming from, building developer tools and enterprise systems. We know how to do that, but we are excited to add something extra to it. And we really liked how we are getting into how the fintech world is developing. We already saw some, experience with Revolut and so on. And we said, okay, let's actually combine something with what we know with fintech. We actually knew nothing about fintech. So the first thing was go and start the company with the Google Sprint, right? 5 days, rapid iteration, put down a prototype and try to sell it in 5 days. So I started planning this Google Sprint, and I said, okay, we're going to build. And our first idea was to create a virtual card that protects company from overspending money on subscriptions, right? That's it. We had no idea how you issue a company card and how the payment world works. So 1 month before we started the sprint, while my notice period was happening, I said, okay, we're going to do this kind of a cross team. So we got the CTO. I had a friend who's really strong at finance. So we got him on the sprint. And then I said, we found a designer who's going to join us, paid for 1 week. And then I had to find a way to get somebody that knows at least something about cards and financial services. So the first thing I did, I went to Wayback Machine. If you know this website, this allows you to check any website, there is some background noise, sorry. From, I think, Marco.
Rafal, could you also turn
sorry,
yourself on mute?
okay.
No worries, no worries. Are you working out? Okay, cool.
So we said, we need to go and find somebody that at least knows how a fintech is. And the first thing was, let's actually understand how this industry operates. So I went to the Wayback Machine, put the Revolut website into there, and check their terms, how things changed from 2015, 2016, 2017, just to understand their terms of use. How is this thing operating, right? And obviously, if you read them in 2018, it was like, oh, Revolut there. But I knew that I knew that when you are starting, you couldn't be on your own. And then I identified companies like PaySafe that was there, that was doing something with bank sponsorship, which I had no idea what it is. So I managed to get to a person at PaySafe and managed to find a lady that actually has helped Revolut do that. And she sent me an email explaining everything. And I understood zero out of it, right? I mean, if I read it today, she so clearly explained what we did, but at the time I had no idea what she did. And then I saw, okay, there is this kind of concept of electronic money. There is this kind of a payment services directive in Europe that allows issuing electronic money. And then I found institutions in Bulgaria that have electronic money. So there were 2 companies in Bulgaria. And I managed to get an intro to the founders of one of those. I met them for lunch, and I was explaining him, all the success we did at Telerik, how we are building products, and he was like, I have such a pain to build products with my company. I don't know how to do it. And I said, I can show you guys how you can build products. What I need is to give me, the best payments guy from your company free of charge for 1 week. So they gave me somebody that was on the board. She's currently their legal head. And they managed to give me this person of a company that is 5,500 employees to get her in a room for 1 week to be drawing things on a whiteboard and explaining, pretty much how the world works. And the funny thing is, we really showed her how a product is being done. Like we went through interviews, defined the problem, decided what we want to do, build a website, prototyped it, and on the 5th day, we had like 6 CFOs across the world lined up to be being sold to our company. And funny enough, after that, we did 20, 30 more interviews with companies across the world trying to sell this prototype to just understand how everything works. And every time I was talking to these financial people, every time they were telling me, well, virtual cards, we don't have that much of an issue with subscriptions, but we really hate that our employees go with physical cards, spend, and we cannot find the receipts and the invoices. And then I actually started looking at on the internet to see, how this problem is being solved. And we identified companies like Plio, Sodu, Spendesk that were 3 years old at the time, that were doing what Revolut does, but they were only focused on the expense management and spend management side. They were only issuing physical cards, virtual cards, and allowing you to match the receipts, and that's it. And I said, okay, let's have a look. This is interesting. I took their website and I spent about a month and a half selling their website, just trying to see where their value proposition breaks. If I sell it to people that are, company that is 10 people, 20 people, 100 people, 500 people, where is the story breaking, right? What is the ceiling of their value proposition? Where is this market going? And I quickly realized that if you are selling this to companies that are 500 employees, these guys get the message of every employee has a company card, which is very nice and sweet if you have 20 employees. But if you have 500, the look of the CFO face when you tell him that every employee is going to have a card is a very funny picture. So what we understand is that, managing company cards, this was just one point, one pain problem. But they also had issues managing accounts payable, meaning paying bills and invoices, extracting data, a lot of data and manual entry on top of those bills, reimbursing employees that don't have access to a company card. So the actual reality I got to was that there is fundamentally one big, massive problem on the market. And this is the disconnect between bank accounts and ERP systems. Right now, all of this in the middle is done manually because banks, who were the financial system, they never cared about anything beyond giving you a company card. You're using this at the POS terminal, and as soon as you pay, nobody cares about what happens after that. But that is the moment in time where the pain point for the business begins. What do I do with this expense? To who I give the receipts? Was I allowed to spend those money for the business, and so on? So we really identified this vision that we can actually go and build something that solves all of these problems. And that was nice and easy.
And what was their exact profile? So who were you targeting when you were speaking to them?
So we were targeting financial people. And the main problem we identified was that they had hard times chasing the receipts out of the company cards. So we found companies where there are 40 employees, everybody has a picture of the company credit card, and everybody spends, and the CFO and the finance managers have no idea who to contact to find the receipts, and they cannot reconcile the month at the end of the day. And there was no responsibility. Everybody was spending on everything with the company credit card because there is usually one or two. That is the main challenge we identified. And then we try to always, and even today when we sell, we only go with the spearhead, right? All the other things complicate your value proposition. So you already have to go with the spearhead. That is what you sell. And that's 80% of the conversation starters, and everything else is extra. That comes on top of that. So
how many did you speak to?
40 CFOs, 40.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, okay, we identified it. We identified the problem. So from 1st of July, we did the sprint, and mid of August, we said, we know what we want to build, 45 days. And then we headhunted engineers from Telerik, which we knew were very good. We closed the Telerik founders as angels, and we started with that. And then after 4 months of starting bringing the team together, we had our first card on the market with data extraction, full OCR on all the receipts in 60 languages, and secured 3 or 4 customers. After that, I said it's going to be super easy so the pre-seed, one key thing about fundraising pre-seed is that pre-seed and seed, maybe seed, not that, but pre-seed are only going to, people are only going to invest that are within 1 kilometer of your location. So you need to find those initial money within the same city. There is no way you can raise a pre-seed from a different country. And that's not very easy in Eastern Europe. There are usually 2, 3, 4 funds. And maybe these funds are focused on certain verticals, and maybe you're not in their vertical, and that makes it complicated. Luckily, you can actually find a lot of angels, especially founders that have been successful in your regions. They would be happy to write a check. And I just was discussing before the meeting, the next time you're setting up the price for the pitches, I will be happy to participate. So I think that is kind of the way you need to think about it. And you need to think about local support initially. That is the way to go. And then I said, okay, for the seed round, I'm going to go and get some funding from Western Europe, where we are going to target it as a market. And 2019, I started fundraising in March, our seed round, and I got 60 rejections out of 42 funds to raise our seed round. Because there were 60, because a lot of funds said no twice. I had to ask them over and over again. And it was so painful because 2019, you were, flying to meet with most of those folks. So I was constantly on a plane trying to go and convince these guys that we out of Bulgaria, we are actually doing something legit here. And we are, experienced team, and we are working on a real product. We know it's involved with money, but you have to trust us that these financial services work, which was very hard, right? I mean, I think the general knowledge of people about credit cards originating from Bulgaria was that we are really good at stealing them, and pretty much that's it. And that was all people knew about Bulgarian credit cards in one sentence. So that was very hard. And the other thing was that I underestimated was that you need to really understand how VCs work. And they really, there are 3 types of VCs. So tier 1 investors, they never looked at who else is investing. They don't care about the market. All they care is about you, and whether you have the potential and you're aiming big enough to create a massive return for them. So they usually, the way the world of financial VCs work is that out of a seed investor who's going to make 120 bets, 2, maximum 3 are going to return the whole fund. And that's how their math works, right? They need to just get those 2 or 3 to return all the investments. And in that case, this is the tier 1 investors. They don't care about who else is on the market. The second tier of investment is that one typical thing about them is they're very good friends with the tier 1 investors. So they really like to invest with them, right? They consider them as a tier 1 investor, but wannabe. So these are the types of investors that they just go with whoever is the tier 1. And then there is the tier 3 investor who actually, they only get the name that to be a VC, but they're like investing like private capital or trying to invest out of they really don't want to give any money, right? They are very afraid, very concerned. And if you have goals, to go on the moon, with these guys, they're afraid of the acceleration. They cannot get there. They're just afraid to step on the rocket ship. And you really need to understand what kind of an investor you're talking to. So what happened with this was that it was super funny because we were meeting with all those 3 tiers of investors, and the tier 3 and tier 2, they were super afraid that all of our competitors have so much money. They're already invested by Index, Accel, Creandom, all the top names, and they're like, this market is done. These guys invested, that's it. It's game over. Nobody can do anything in this market. If these guys, they are just very afraid of that. The second tier of investors are even more like afraid of who else is investing in the market. Like they're, focused on competition, how much money are in the market, what is the team, especially if it's not a team within their local geography, they're also more, more concerned. And then the tier 1 investor, they don't care where you're coming from. They don't care whether you're in Bulgaria, in Romania, Serbia, Greece, or Israel. They care about you being a good team, you having a good idea, and you having a proof track record of being able to achieve that. That is number 1 thing. And unfortunately, the Tier 1 investors are very few in Europe, and most of your conversations with other people that you need to convince. But after in our fundraising, we managed to get to a point where we got on the bricks of ruining the company. So we had our pre-seed round was €500,000. And our angel rounds before that was €200,000. So we had €700,000 investment. And we went for about a year and a few months with that. And we were about 32 days before we ran out of money. And I had, 42 funds who already rejected us. And I was like, it's impossible, right? I have tried everything. We went to, Czech Republic, Germany, UK, Austria, everywhere to search, actually Romania as well, to try to search for funding. And it was really hard. And what happened was that one of those funds, Early Bird, reached out again. And the funny thing was, I was talking with one of these Tier 3 funds. So they're very small fund, not a professional VC at all. They were just thinking about how to put 1.5 million, but then it get very tricky. They're like, okay, we give you half now, half later, some very strange setup, but they gave us a term sheet. Actually, it didn't have valuation on it. It was very strange. Who gives you a term sheet without valuation? And we're like, and the funny thing is, you talk with them on the phone, we agreed on everything, they send you the document, and the document is completely different. It's like you spoke to somebody else. And then you call him, you said, I think you sent me the wrong file. And he's like, no, this is the file. And you're like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. Sorry for the language. And then, Early Bird reached out. They already rejected us. And they said, well, they heard from somewhere we got a term sheet. And they said, hey guys, we heard there is a movement with you and we would like to have a look. We have so that was on Tuesday. They said, we have some time on Friday. And I sent them an email. And that was something I didn't realize how powerful it is. But in general, VCs have two types of answers. Either they're saying, no, we're not going to invest, or they're saying, please, please, please. Right? There is nobody says yes, in this world. Either he's begging or he's saying no. So what I told them is, I told them, guys, you are super late. We are signing a term sheet today. So if you want to talk, 5 o'clock is the latest. Otherwise, we are signing up. And they said, okay, let us rearrange all of our schedules. They got the partners, and it's very important to talk to a partner, especially early on. So you should find a way to talk to the partner. Don't waste a lot of time. It is out of courtesy. It would be good if you spend 1 or 2 calls with an associate, but you need to get to the partner. If not, this guy is just doing some research. And we got them on a call for 30 minutes, and we spent 2 hours and a half. And that was a good sign. And we just presented it's a done deal, guys. You're super late. You missed the boat. And they got into this kind of fast moving, closing mode. And in 2 weeks, we signed the term sheet with Early Bird to do 3 million investment in Payhawk. And that was a big lesson that we learned at the time. Another thing that is important after that was that, good investors bring other good investors. If you get a average investor, you're going to always stick to the average investor. So the pre-seed and the seed investors do everything possible. It's going to be very hard, but do everything possible to get to them. And also use those VC conversations to change your pitch, to change your market position, because they're actually talking to 100 companies in the same category. And then they can tell you what. So I used that over time to really change how we think about the product, how we think about the go-to-market. I started understanding what excites them to have an exciting conversation. After that, we moved to a very fast process. We scaled the team, and we signed the deal on 13th of March, which was the day of the lockdown in Bulgaria. And then we do the announcement on the 16th of March, which was Monday, and everybody was on lockdown, and we were in a lockdown with 3 million, which felt very good because some other companies were also fundraising and they couldn't cut the line. and then this investment stopped for a few months. So we would have been, not here as a company. After that, we did a fundraising with QED. So pretty much similar experience. Like we are not fundraising, but we are talking to a few, and then we closed the round. So we closed 20 million Series A, and this is something that I'll share with you. And I hope that it's not going to go away from that room, but and hopefully not on the internet. But we closed the Series B investment 2 nights ago. So we're we signed a term sheet for 100 million Series B round. And right now we are going to go full scale mode. So we plan to be about 250 people in about a month. In about a year from now.
Fantastic. Yes, thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So that's kind of the story about fundraising and some of the lessons we learned. And also one other tip that I would say about fundraising is try to get angels as early as possible, and try to get angels from the markets you plan to target or you plan to fundraise from, because there are these kind of super angels in every market. Everybody knows them. The local community knows them. If you manage to land one of those two guys, what VCs love to see is something that's familiar, like, familiar name, familiar market, familiar target customers that we're trying to do. Anything that's familiar to them is going to be okay. Anything that's not, it's scary. So that's it.
Thanks so much, Hristo. Wanted to, since Katarina asked the question in chat in regards to your seed round. So what were the main reasons behind those rejections that you got? Common denominators, things that you heard most frequently as a rejection reason, or no reason whatsoever?
So there is something funny with VCs. So the problem is that if we knew as a team, we can go and crush that market. So by the way, with that valuation, with that round that we're doing, we just catched up with all of our competitors that at the time when I started the company, they had 180 million total fundraised amount. All their Series C were 120 million 3 months ago, and we just catch them with 3 years after we started with them. So what VCs think about is that VCs are very careful about whether they go in a market where winner takes it all. And this is where Tier 2 and Tier 3 investors are very afraid, because they don't have the capital and the support and the knowledge to make you the #1 company. And this is what Tier 1 investors love, because they have unlimited pockets. And they know that if you're the guy and this market is a potential about winner takes it all, and they have the money, that's a match made in heaven. So you have to, first of all, for the seed round, one of the rejections are you're in a too small market, very common. We don't understand the problem, right? I mean, what are you trying to solve? Is this a market? And if this market, the harder it takes for them to understand what you solve, the less likelihood of them investing. They need to understand who are you going to compete with, and who else is already on that market, and how you're going to try to beat them. And that's not always easy to explain to a VC. I was telling them, guys, we're just better. But that doesn't sound very credible for 2 guys sitting in a desk in Sofia, and then 3 companies in Paris, Denmark, and London with 100 million dollars in the bank. You're telling them we're going to build this better, and they're saying, well, they have 180 million, right? You're going to say, we're going to have much more market execution. And then all the reasoning from them is like, oh, there is already money there, right? How we are going to do it? And sometimes there is, we are feeling this in our guts that we can go and build much better product and much better market. And that's not easy to explain to a VC. And I agree with them that sometimes you don't know, it's a bet. So that's why I think being able to articulate your problem, being able to articulate the market in which you're going, who else is there and why you're better and how you're going to do, what's going to be your go-to-market strategy, that's even not that important for the seed round. For the seed round, it is, do you have the resources to actually build any of that? If we give you 2, 3, 4 million seed round, can you actually use those money efficiently, and can you actually produce something that is worth customers signing up for it? And another thing is, all the small investors were looking for traction numbers. All the big investors were only thinking about the team and only thinking about whether you have the main ingredients. So if I summarize it correctly, for the Tier 1 VCs, they look for the ingredients, right? And they look for something that is rough and has the potential to become something big, a team, a market, a product market fit, addressable market, resources internally to support that and to get to that stage, competition and friction that's going to be on the market and things like that. The small guys look for a cooked meal, right? They want to see a hockey stick already, and they just want to see if you put $1 here, it's going to be $5 on the other side. But that's not seed investment, right? That is Series B investment, Series C investment, where this is a growth stage. You already have a machine, and you know that if you put $1, it's going to be $5 on the other side after it goes through the machine. So I think that were the main objections. Also, why now? Those things you need to be able to answer and articulate on your sleep. And that was kind of the main reasons why they didn't want to look into it. And the other thing is, with seed investors, cold calling doesn't work. One thing we did, and I advise every one of you to do, is go and set up Crunchbase as soon as possible. Set up your location in a place where ultimately it is not Bucharest or Sofia, and it is in a more recognizable city. Try to announce the round that you have, and there are a massive amount of VCs who are monitoring certain markets. They're trying to see activity into this market, and then they reach out to you. So early on, we set up our headquarters to be in London. We still didn't have a UK company. I changed my location to be in London. We put Crunchbase, we closed the round, and then a lot of seed investors reached out because they saw that there is something happening. We got like already 700,000 euro. We are in a certain category. And these automations in Crunchbase, where they're looking to source opportunities, we started appearing on their radar. And I'm sure there are not a lot of companies, VCs, watching, Eastern Europe. Most probably there are some, but I don't think there are so many. You only need to think about fundraising is if I am in the market I target, right? If you're targeting UK or Germany, set up your location there. Technically, or if you're in Bucharest or somewhere else, but you really don't care about it. At the end of the day, your go-to-market strategy will be in that market, and you're going to end up there. So I think that's the way we like to think about it. And it's still a shortcut we need to exploit coming from Eastern Europe. That is handy.
Thanks. Do you have questions right now that you'd like to ask Hristo before I continue?
Yeah, I mean,
Ilya, yeah, go for it.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Ilya from BitScout, and we help project managers make their tools smarter.
Mm-hmm.
So the question that I have, it's thanks a lot. That's really an amazing story, Hristo. The question that I have, you mentioned that Tier 1 VCs are looking for winner takes it all market. So can you elaborate a little bit, because you were pitching to Tier 1 VCs about the market where there are 3 competitors in front of their market?
What I had to do, so winner takes it all market, not every market is like that. So strategy number 1, if you are in a market which is not winner takes it all, that doesn't mean the VC knows it. And you have to prove that this is not a winner takes it all. And that's not easy. And in our market, so what we do is we issue company cards. And so behind the scenes, Payhawk is a neobank. So we give you IBANs, account payments, multiple currencies, multiple instruments to do payments. So you can do SEPA transfers to pay bills. You can issue company cards and manage all of your employees and company spend. And what we needed to prove is that at the end of the day, it cannot be one winner in Europe because there are many countries and many currencies. And at the end of the day, if you don't support the local currency and the local country, localization, language, and so on, it cannot be winner takes it all. While there are some markets where, for example, if you're doing a pure software, right, and you get it right, let's say like Zoom, right? This is a good example of like winner takes it all. Not really, but 40% is a good chunk of. If somebody can get to 30-40% in the market, it means it is winner takes it all. And this is where they need to understand that. And the best thing is to go to a tier VC, to R1 VC, and prove to them that this is not a winner takes it all. Because otherwise, you need to make the argument versus all the capital and all the competitors that are out there. That's why you need to think about that kind of market dynamics.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think Katarina was also curious in regards to this location story. So how describe, the London-based versus Bulgarian-based? So more of a, from the strategic point of view of,
So
actually doing it, on the ground and moving the actual market there. So what more from the point of view of, as she put it, faking it in regards to London-based, but still.
Yeah, I mean, we were when we closed the seed round and the Series A, we were London-based. In the Series B, we will be Sofia-based. I mean, it really depends. I mean, the way we think about it is that obviously what we did is after that we quickly set up an entity in UK so that we can actually be able to operate from there. We put it on. We didn't touch that entity for 1 year, so we just had an entity. That's it. We didn't do anything with it, and no, our idea was that we always wanted to hire people there, and we started fundraising. We got a few angels. And we managed to, after the seed round, when started expanding the first location where we got a commercial director was in the UK, and then we also did Berlin and Barcelona. There is one, this kind of a location sometimes is overrated, but it's not to be underestimated. One thing that, I mean, I think the way we like to think about it is that. Think about Revolut, right? I'm always amazed how everybody imagines this as the UK success story when this is done by 2 immigrants with Russian names, and nobody never mentions Russia. Like it is the UK most successful story, and right now, I agree. Maybe 95% of the people that are in the UK are English, but that wasn't the case when there were 5 people. They just happened to be in London. And right now, with everything being remote, I don't know where you are anyway, right? So use that as an advantage. You can say, yes, we're headquartered there, we have an entity, and we'll be moving this, our go-to-market, this is where we are going to be expanding. Right now, the engineering team is here and so on. So that is it's a thin line, but at the end of the day, these are some of the things we have to do to get to that stage.
You said that you had your words were you knew nothing about fintech when you started. So how did you cope with this founder market fit, or did you have any sort of questions in regards to your personal expertise as a co-founder?
Well, I think the important thing about seed investment is that you have to have a working product. So one thing that I didn't mention is that when I started the fundraising in February or March, I remember when I went in May 2019 to London, 4 months after we launched the card, we had customers from 16 countries. So this was working, right? It was on a very small scale. It was baby revenue. We were making €600 a month, right? But it was working, right? We had, we didn't identify how to monetize it. We didn't know how to do it. We did 23 iterations on our pricing model of the last 3 years, how to understand how this works. And that's evolution. But if the product is there, if the product works, nobody that much cares about traction in terms of revenue. They care about maybe product metrics, maybe some adoption metrics, some cohorts in terms of engagement and so on.
Okay, so at the end of the day, your experience as director of product showed.
Yeah, I mean, that added a lot of credentials because I didn't only have that experience in paper. We built a product and we showed them we can build super fast product. You know, we managed to get a cart on the market in 4 months, while all of our competitors took 18 months. So you have to find this kind of a shortcut and efficiency. This is what VCs love, that you just operate 5 times more effectively than other teams. And that is pretty key for seed investments.
Sounds good. Irina, sorry, you had your hand up for a while now.
Hi there, I'm Irina. I am the CEO and co-founder of Vont. Vont is a SaaS solution for residential real estate developers and real estate agencies. We help them streamline sales and management of residential projects. I would like to congratulate you for your story. It was super inspiring. And I hope you guys are celebrating your round.
As soon as, so one thing with fundraising is until you have the money in the bank, you don't celebrate.
Okay, celebrate after, okay.
Yes.
My question for you is that we're bootstrapped, we have traction, we have MRR, and now we're raising our first round. My question for you is that, do you have any tips for the practical part? How did you structure yourself when raising funds for the VCs? Did you establish a sales pipeline? Can you talk more about that? Did you have a strategy about it?
Yeah. So I think the best thing is that's why I think the angels are very important, because they know the VCs. So one thing that really worked well was that we get the inbound interest from the Crunchbase that we did. And we also managed to get a lot of intros. And VCs, when you get an intro, the VCs always replying. They never are going to ignore that. We got 0 meetings by going to the website of the VC and trying to reach them on our own or submitting on their forms there. I think most of the funds, they don't even know that they have a form on the website. So that's why I think you really need to look for those intros. So what we did as a strategy was we create a pipeline, a Trello board, like, reach out, in talks, discussion, negotiating, closed, and you just try to go through the numbers. Unfortunately, the seed round is all about getting in front of many investors. So I think one thing that can be helpful is, for example, events like Web Summit, and things like that. They do have some investors there. You can try to reach them. You can try to speak to them. You can try to get an intro. That's actually the best. If you want to get an intro, that is very important. To reach to some investors or some actually entrepreneurs, because actually, VCs talk to VCs, but intro from an entrepreneur is worth in gold, especially if that was a very successful or somebody that they really trust. So that's something that is important. So yeah, we managed it like a sales pipeline.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much.
Great. I was curious. So as a product person, how did you feel your role would be split from the from a CEO's perspective and wearing the hat of being on fundraising mode all the time? So how did you split yourself, and how did you find the balance on building the company, being on fundraising, and on the road all the time?
Well, I thought about it one and the same thing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're building a product, and seed investment is always about the product. So I was actually constantly pitching them what the product is. I was showing them demos. I was, using the product heavily. I was seeing what excites them. I was seeing what customers is being excited, because apart from being I was also the salesman. So I was the product manager. I was the sales guy. I was the guy fundraising, and we got we actually very early on we got one person to help with the selling. So both of us were the initial sales force, and doing those things at the same time, I made sure that a true product manager can work on the high level stuff, on the UX, on the experience of what we need to get. But I had a team I can trust on the execution part. So I never had to think about how that's going to work. And I had a really powerful CTO where I knew everything is possible. So as soon as we agreed on it, as soon as we design it, as soon as we think that's the right way, that was coming very quickly, becoming a reality. So even today, I mean, you have to, as an entrepreneur, I think you have to be able to not only change those multiple hats that you have, but it was one thing to do that when you were like 2 people. It's another when you were 30 people. It's another to be when you are 70, 80 people. And you need to be constantly evolving of what your job is. And that's not always easy. I mean, you should be able to seek, what I do is seek a lot of feedback also internally to see where, you know, the team might say, well, you know, you don't have to be involved into this, we can handle it, right? So actually, the less I'm involved now, the more functional is the organization. And I can focus on more strategic things that the team cannot, like fundraising or signing up strategic deals with banks and insurers on which we can operate on, and other things that are my responsibility.
So what takes up your time right now? How does your day look like?
So usually till before last week, you know, what I do is I spend, so the first thing we did as a company is we invested a lot in numbers and data, try to understand everything. So what I spend most of my time is thinking about our OKRs as a team and how to measure them and what we want to do. So this is where strategy meets execution. So I spend a lot of time thinking about OKRs, team performance. Actually, my org chart of hiring. So I have an org chart of what we need and where the company is going. Before we hire a person and a team, I put what kind of KPIs we expect this guy to own and what result can we expect from this person. So if we're hiring 10 BDRs, those 10 BDRs, how is that going to, what do we expect, right? Before we even hire them, to make sure we're all agreed and aligned on why we need those people, how we're going to manage them, and what we expect from them. So this is a lot what I do. Obviously, fundraising is another thing that, by the way, this never stops. One thing that really worked well for me was all the VCs that reached out in the last 3 months, I squeezed them in 1 week of October. So I told them first week of October, I will meet with VCs. And I knew that our board meeting was the week after that. So we would have up-to-date business model, up-to-date financials for Q3 and things like that. So I met with 19 VCs the first week of October. My idea was not to fundraise. So we were thinking about fundraising summer next year. And then I had 5 conversations with the VCs and I was like, we will be fundraising next year. And they're like, whoa, we really like the business. It's very hot space. You know, why don't you look at it sooner? And I was like, well, we will think about it. And then after the next 5 VCs, I told them, well, we think about fundraising this year, actually in November. And they were like, oh, we will be very interested to look at it. And then I was like, okay, what should be the valuation? And then I said, on the next 5 meetings, I was like, we are fundraising in November. The valuation is this and this. And as long as they didn't run out of the Zoom meeting, it was fine. So we went from 240 million pre-money valuation to 400 million pre-money valuation on those calls until Tiger Global issued us a term sheet. And from then everything went through the roof. As soon as you have a term sheet, and I use the same tactics as with Earlybird. I send everybody an email saying, guys, we have a term sheet, we're signing, today's Tuesday, we are going to sign by end of the day on Sunday. Here is the data, here is the deck, ask me anything, 24/7. And that's it. And then all the VCs from being in a chat, exploring, they're in a rush with all their analysts to see whether they have missed the next rocket ship, right? And you need this kind of a momentum in fundraising, because as long as you lose the momentum, you know, VCs got distracted and then the deals go away. So this kind of how we do it.
That's really, really great. Yeah, one of my next questions was around milestones and what were your milestones for hitting, you know, for starting again your next round, but you've kind of answered.
You always, when you speak to VC, you know, you speak to the VC if you're willing to take some money in the next 2-3 months. Otherwise, don't waste your time. And by the way, sorry, maybe I should correct myself. If you're planning a seed investment, or you need to put at least 6 to 9 months. I mean, it's a very long process. For the rest of the round as well, if your money are running out in 9 months, you should start fundraising right now, because it's going to take at least 6 months. You need to be prepared to take at least 6 months. It might take 1 week, but you cannot bet against that. And especially with those kind of high growth stages, high growth businesses where you need a lot of capital, you need to do that constantly. So it's always fundraising. And funny thing is, I still see some people congratulating me for the Series A round, which was in April. Yeah, things move fast.
Well, which was announced in April. So
yeah,
and I'm pretty sure next year you'll get congratulations.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, until next year, you'll announce probably this one. So
We plan to do it in about a month from now. So
yeah.
We'll see.
To go on these specifics. Sorry, guys. Again, asking. Before I continue with some questions, anyone else who has something for Hristo of the founders? Cool. So let's go on the granularities, maybe on on the fintech company. So what sort of particular challenges did you have in regards to this sector in specific? So as a fintech company, what were the major challenges you had to face?
So for us, major challenges were the high barriers to entry the fintech market. So you need to work with issuers, processors, human institutions, which are very expensive. So you cannot do anything with less than 300,000-400,000 euro, and that's the cost of the market. So one story I didn't share was that we won a competition in 2019 January, on the same month where we released our first card on the market. I traveled to Paris with our card, and we won a competition with a company called Wirecard. If you have heard about it, so Wirecard was one of the biggest success stories in Germany. So part of this was, hey, we're coming from Bulgaria. If we issue Bulgarian IBANs, it might look dodgy. And if we're going to target Germany, Western Europe, we need to something more solid as a name. So we went for Wirecard. Like, this is German. Like, this should feel like trustworthy. It is one of the golden DAX stocks in there, one of the 30 best performing stocks. And we invested all of our money from the pre-seed round into working with them. We spent a year and a half trying to get this to work. That was one of the things that almost sent us in the bricks almost killed us as a company. And the reason why we had to do this kind of a seed investment early on. And then we went to the stage of releasing a company card with them. It took us, instead of 6 months, it took us a year and a half because it was super slow. And then we were the last company to ever announce anything with Wirecard. 2 days after our announcement on June 16, on June 18, Wirecard went bankrupt because of a major fraud for several $1 billion, which was the first time anything happens like this in the German economy. And we lost a lot of money. We lost a lot of time and resources into getting this to work. And we still managed to survive as a company. So in our market, the biggest barriers were really working with those old school institutions that were very expensive, very hard to work with, and very risky. So any business that has this kind of a huge partner, with this, you really need to do very good due diligence when making these decisions, because that can kill your company instantly.
talking about partnerships, maybe we move on to, so your clients come from mid-size to large size, enterprises. So what advice do you have for the teams in regards to working with corporates and with bigger?
Well, don't work with them. I mean, this is David versus Goliath. I mean, they can kill you in just by their weight without their intention. They're just so slow that you can run out of cash getting with in the wrong room. Unfortunately, I think the post-mortem of companies that ended up losing their company and not having a company are massively are a massive number compared to those that try to have more kind of a less risky strategy targeting, let's say, smaller businesses or mid-sized companies that have much faster decision making. Because if you're targeting the large corporates, that's not going to work, unfortunately. So whoever is targeting a big corporate, that's not the market you start. You start with you need to penetrate a market where you can just have 5, 6, 7, 10 customers at least that to prove product market fit. Because the other thing that can happen is you can land this big corporate as a customer, but if you land it too soon, that can kill you as well, because you might skew your product and vision too much because of that. So I don't think there is maybe there are some handful of startups that manage to start with selling to corporates early on, but I think that's more of an exception rather than the rule. At least my opinion. I mean, obviously.
We take everything with a salt of grain.
Last comments just made us, 3 hands. Alexander, yes, please.
I was actually curious what you can share about iterating on your value proposition. So was it like, I mean, from your amazing story, which I super thank you for, and we all do, from your story, it looks like you started somewhere and then you learned from the market, and then you immediately, or not immediately, at some point you knew how you wanted to move forward, and then it was just a function of raising the money, right? Yeah. And if you did a pre-seed with angels, and then you did a seed later on. But was there any iteration on the value proposition? So did you start somewhere and then slowly you started migrating or refining that value prop, or was it clear from the beginning? And if you can share any kind of examples, it would be great. Thank you so much.
Yes, so we actually did a zoom out pivot. So what does that mean? Our idea was to have a virtual card that helps you protect from subscriptions. And what happened was that by talking to those companies, they said, this is just a subset of the problem. We need also a physical card. We need to also pay bills. We need to reimburse employees. So we did a zoom out, right? You can do a zoom out, you can do a zoom in, you can completely change. And in our case, we just defined the product and the problem much wider. And that happened pretty fast. So that happened on the first design level. So this was on the sprint. So this was on the prototype level after the 45 days. And this is when I started speaking to those CFOs of competitors, so trying to sell the competitors to CFOs to understand what works, what doesn't work, right? And just play by the ear. Try to understand what excites the customers, where he sees friction, and try to do a lot of selling yourself. I think the way to evolve the value proposition is just by doing that, spending as much as time as possible, trying to really understand what exactly out of those value proposition excites it, and try to strip it down on its core. I think the most successful companies are those that are just being able to articulate their added value and know how to present that to their key audience, and to be able to build a channel to get that message across. That is the hardest thing. I mean, and especially for us, I mean, the other thing is sometimes you might need to do a lot of references to explain what your product is. It's like this, but for that, right? this is, I love to think about how TV was explained when it first came out. It was a radio with pictures, because there was no other way to explain what this is. So I think the value proposition is about making it simpler and simpler and simpler until it is much easier to convey and people to understand, because your value proposition would be everything else would be a function out of value proposition, like your website, your messaging, your ad campaigns, your copy, and absolutely everything. So spend some time to constantly evolve that. I always like to use lean business canvas to actually try to state the problem, and I usually use the three, like, what is the problem, what's the solution, what's the value prop, because there are three different things and you have to be constantly clear about them. And in the problem definition, always try to you have to make tough choices, right? It's about saying no a lot more than yes. What gets into the value prop, what gets out, and who do you target, who do you not target, and all those things are going to allow you to have a crisp message. And the other thing is test it. And as soon as you think you have a crisp message, go and talk to people and see how this works. And that's constantly. I mean, if people don't get it, you can improve. If people are not excited about it and they're continuing to eat their lunch and they're like just nodding their hand, they didn't get it. I mean, this doesn't work, right? They need to ask, tell me more. I mean, you really need to see the spark. And I think that is where the qualitative feedback comes in. I mean, you can run as many surveys, you can do as many things as you want, but you need to be able to go to a person and just explain you what you do and to get this person excited, if he is the right audience, of course.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe a follow-up question on the raising. You mentioned that you raised the pre-seed round with angels, and it seems from your point of view that there is no option for raising with a VC fund in pre-seed, right?
No, there is, but it needs to be a very small VC, like 5 to 10 million size of a VC. And you also, one very important question you have to ask the VCs is, and you are going to get them all, you know what you're talking about, is to always ask them where in the life cycle of their investment is. Like ask them, okay, you have 5 million fund or 10 million fund, how much have you allocated so far? How much left do you have? What is your average ticket size? How many investments you have made, right? Try to understand where they are, because sometimes they might be, at the end of the fundraising, or they might even not have a fund currently to allocate from. And those things give you a sense of whether they're, sometimes a lot of VCs are going to reach out to you just from out of curiosity and competitive intelligence. So you have to be understand quickly when a VC is hunting versus fishing, right? When they're on the hunt, the questions they ask are very different from when they're fishing. When they're fishing, they're coming and out of the blue asking a very specific question. You're like, I mean, out of all the things we discussed, you ask me, how much is our margin with that issuer on this specific thing? It's like, you have a lot of context here. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Katarina, you got a question.
Yes, I always have questions. I wanted to ask you, do you see me? Do you hear me all right?
Yes, I see.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. It was me. I asked 2 questions because I'm now in the pain of fundraising and managing the pipeline as you advised. So it's the first time we're actually using the structured approach. So I have 2 questions related on what you previously said. So as I do remember right, you say that when you come from the, let's say, Eastern Europe, we are Croatia, but, Eastern Europe, mainly we are talked, yeah. So you said that it's better to look for the help in your range, in where you are. And second problem that we have, that we are now in the market, it's travel tech and it's group travel that, it has no revenue, it's just picking up and investors are afraid. So when I made a Crunchbase survey, actually the previous speaker, Carlos, advised us from SeedCamp to do that. I saw that last year in travel tech in Europe, there were just 3 or 4 investments, like in Poland and and also in Estonia, but very small tickets, but very high tickets I had in Switzerland, like in Western Europe. So I have no choice, but I will need to go and now to try to sell myself and to fundraise in Western Europe, because what I was told that in our region, they are not showing the market potential. They are afraid simply right now, and they don't want to take a risk. So what was the main hurdle? Is it at all possible? Like, what can we do in order to get their attention?
I think if you are absolutely 100% sure and you have exhausted all options to go within 1 mile of your company to fundraise, then just use the benefit of the doubt, saying, well, these guys don't get it. I would just find somebody else. And I think, even though there are companies targeting West, I think we can actually find companies in East that are investing into your region. And that's something that you also need to do, because there are right now specialized funds that do investments in all regions, even though they're not into this country. So for example, Early Bird is a very good example. You investing in UiPath in Romania, in Payhawk in Bulgaria, and so on. There are 11 here, which is a pre-seed fund. They do investment right now in Bulgaria, in Greece, in Romania, in the region. So that's a focus for them. So I think there are, in those other countries nearby you, there should be funds that usually have exhausted or have met most of the companies in their territory, and they're now open to invest in other places. And I think specifically, this is something very typical for Eastern Europe, because the VCs cannot just rely on one country if they have, they are raising their second, third, fourth fund, because this is where they have already through a fund before exhausted all the potential, and they know that they have the name, but they need to see more deals, more pipeline.
This is why we're here, and we get really great introductions, but I still see the main feedback is, like, as you said, traction numbers, we want to be sure, but in travel tech right now, nothing is sure. But what was the main problem if you go and apply to the VC that is the Western VC? For example, I saw quite a lot right now in Switzerland, in Zug, that they are actually early stage travel tech. Did you find out they just, do not want to invest in our region, or what was the main?
To invest somewhere, you need to be familiar with. There should be something familiar, right? I mean, and either the VC has a strategy to invest in this region, which by the way is happening more and more. So this is something that happens right now, or I think you need to find those VCs that usually don't invest in this region. They had willingness to invest. By the way, accepting to talk to you means that, they have been thinking about this region, right? Otherwise, they would just tell you that's not our territory. So if you get to talk to them, this means that there is a chance. And you need to understand how to make it familiar for them so that they invest. One thing that you're going to see from other investors is that you always have to have the option to have the main entity, headquartered entity, to be one of their regions. Say, we're fine to go and set up a UK entity or set up an entity in Netherlands. By the way, don't do it in Netherlands. It's crazy. But go in the UK or other countries where you believe you can do it. Malta is not bad, or somewhere where it is kind of more Western than Eastern. And put the, you really need to, it's one thing where the company is, it's another thing where the legal entity is. And a lot of people, they were saying, well, we don't do investments in Bulgaria, but we invest in UK companies. So when you have an UK company, suddenly it is all fine if all of you are in Bulgaria.
Okay, so we can
think about those options, right?
Subsidiary, yes. So just mention it. And the last question you mentioned,
and not subsidiary. Actually, you should be the subsidiary.
Headquarter.
It should be. You need a parent company to be there, because that's where the legal documents are going to be and the protection. So they wouldn't care about the subsidiary at all.
Well, I wanted to ask the second thing about the Crunchbase, that you said kind of being proactive, like set up your company profile will already exist, and you I didn't get it right. Just want to understand. So you basically make like a news or something that, look, we are now going into seed round. We're asking for this amount, so something like that, and then you say that this is like you expose yourself in Crunchbase by this as well.
No, we just exposed ourselves by doing the angel investment, the pre-seed investment, updated there.
Okay.
We didn't say we're fundraising. We just said like we closed previous rounds.
Thank you. Yeah, we have it all updated. Then I have no more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah. So from my side, I find actually I'm wondering how you're splitting your responsibilities, because I am tasked with both fundraising and product, and I'm heard that you are also focusing on that. So now that I'm fundraising, my team is lacking direction in terms of what they need to do. I don't have time to motivate them. And this is something that I'm trying to balance. I have been thinking to maybe start splitting responsibilities with one of my other co-founders in terms of fundraising, but also maybe having someone to help out. What are your thoughts on this?
So sorry, I got a little bit distracted. So can you just repeat quickly the question?
So I find it hard to allocate enough time for my team while I'm full-time fundraising.
I mean, there is no shortcut here. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if I think the best way is to try to not do it at the same time. So I'll do 2 weeks with the team, focusing on something, agree on what we're going to do, let them execute while you do the other part, right? Try to sequence them. There is no other way. I mean, if you try to do, if your days with VC meetings, with working with the product and everything else, it is just very hard to organize it. So try to just allocate times for fundraising, allocate times for the team, so that you have quality time with both.
Yeah, but sadly, not every business model is lucky enough to manage to fundraise quickly. And I am building a crowdfunding platform for luxury items, a new concept that they just say talking to 100 investors only doesn't cut it for raising a fundraising round. So, for example, I've talked to other investors in my shoes, for example, crowd seeders. They had the same problem for 2 rounds. They have to raise continuously, and they call it a high frequency round. So
and
I'm
then
in a
I think the
situation...
answer is, you already said the answer. I mean, if some of the other co-founders can help you while you do focus on that, yeah, at the end of the day, everybody should do what he's best at. And I think that's, I mean, unfortunately, there is nobody else than the CEO to do fundraising. So you need to find somebody else to help with the product part while you're doing that, because at the end of the day, both of those things are important. And
do you think it's a bad idea to get someone in to help with part of the fundraising process?
yeah, absolutely, 100% bad idea. I mean, unless this is an angel who is vested and has an incentive, just getting somebody outside to try to do the fundraising, nobody's going to talk to somebody who is not the founder at that stage. Like,
what about taking away the title? So yes, now I call myself CEO. Lena, my CMO, is also talking to investors. What if we just call ourselves managing directors and we do it together?
you get 0 replies. I mean, you should be CEO and the co-founder. Like, that's it. I mean, I would say that I think, yeah, I mean, I don't think even the CMO is going to get through the noise. I mean, you need to be the founder. That's on you. That is not number one priority, to make sure you keep the lights on. splitting the responsibility or the tasks is focus on internal stuff. I mean, I know it's hard, but you need to get that pressure and you need to find a way to do it. You know, I don't think there is an easy way to that. I mean, maybe that could have worked in some cases, but I just don't see it. I would never do it. I mean, I think especially when we're a very small team, there are so many other things that could be done and can be done that can move the needle, that, you know, fundraising is big enough to lose one person. So, and unfortunately, that should be the CEO.
Got it. Thank you.
So can we recap the structure of the team and your first hires from the beginning in 2018 and now moving on to growth? And so what were the first members of your team besides you and your co-founder, besides you?
Yeah, so we started
Your
with
first hires.
yeah, so we started with myself and the CTO. From day one, we had kind of a CFO who actually didn't work full time. So he was a friend of ours who joined us. He actually did a small ticket angel investment when we set up the company. So he was very willing to help. And it was always the plan that as soon as we get to a meaningful stage as a business, he's going to join. And when he joined at the seed round, we gave him the co-founder title because he has been with us from day one. So the first two people were myself and the CTO. Then we hired 2 more engineers, and then I hired a salesperson. And we also had a part-time designer who worked with me to create a prototype, so that I was selling the prototypes as soon as we got the engineers. We were already with the sales guy selling the prototypes for 4 months until the product was ready. And that allowed us to understand what works, what doesn't work, what they expect, how this works, you know, what are the concepts. So that was kind of the team setup. And then after that, we started hiring one more engineer, one more product person. We got a full-time UX guy, more engineers, and then a few more sales folks. And yeah.
So now you're based in 4 cities, right?
Yes, we're in 4 cities right now.
And how is the split of the roles across these cities?
Well, everything related to engineering, product development is in Sofia. We also have some leadership positions here, like head of sales and so on. We also have, so the offices outside of Sofia are mostly sales. So we usually have the account executives and the BDRs there. So yeah, we from time to time have also local talent, like our head of marketing is in Germany, head of people ops is in London, and so on.
Great. So we're now in the last 10 minutes of our time. I'd like to go around the table again for the team. So do you guys have any other questions that you'd like to address to Hristo at this point? Lina, yes, please.
So I have a question about scaling teams. Like when you scale a team, it's necessary to have procedures. When did you figure out you needed more help with the procedures? I bet you and the founding team established a few procedures, right? At the beginning.
So can you be more specific? Procedures for what?
Like procedures, for instance, who takes care of what? What's the ownership part? Who does the maybe client service, and who takes the absolute ownership of it? Like you need to take a decision of the, let's say.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you need to have, so, you know, I think the first thing is the basic organization, right? Everybody should be very clear on the responsibilities and what he is and what he is not, because you can quickly create a chaos where everybody does everything and nobody feels responsible for anything, and then nobody cares about it at the end of the day. So I think that's as soon as you have a person on the team, you need to know exactly what this person is going to do, and how you're going to be measuring that. In practice, not always works, but at least, at least you're going to see that if your expectations from what this person should do are different than reality, you should have a talk and understand. Maybe you said the role incorrectly, or you said the wrong way to measure that. So in terms of procedures, I think maybe the most important procedure for us was related to the sales process, right? How do we prospect? How do we close? And that evolved over time, but setting up a CRM, our first CRM was Trello. That's it. I mean, the process was you move it from the left to the right, and we didn't have a billing system. So I had to set up a billing system. So you do all the scrappy things you do as a startup founder to get those systems to work together. And slowly, you try to add some process to it. We always try to be very thin on the process with the risk of creating chaos, but with the benefit of moving fast. And that's why I'm, some of the teams hates it, but I really hate processes in general, unless they're absolutely necessary. I mean, I would let something to burn 2 or 3 times before we then put a process, because usually a mistake is not a mistake, but an opportunity to learn, unless you make it 2 or 3 or 4 times, then this is a mistake, right? We continue to make the same mistake. And if this is not detrimental, sometimes with the founder, there are some fires you need to let burn, right? I mean, you cannot put all the fires, and you just need to prioritize, like, what do I leave now? And I know it's broken, to fix something else, which is more important. And even today, I mean, I know a few fires that have been burning for some time, and now they started to appear and to really slow us down as a business, and we need to put them out. But yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So what sort of advice would you have for founders when they lose their motivation? And
get your family on board. Number one thing. I mean, get people to support you and to be cheerleaders on the side. I mean, I try to prepare my family and friends, mostly my family, about that's going to be tough and so on. And then, you need that support, right? I mean, it's going to be very tough, and they need to know that. And sometimes they should even decrease their expectations about you for certain stuff, because your mind is occupied. And yeah, I mean, I think that's motivation comes from, and the other thing is you don't always back yourself up. I mean, you're doing this for a reason, and there is no reason why this shouldn't happen if you really believe in it. And try to support yourself as well. And just to find also time from time to time to just distract, and just try to get your mind out of the fire, and to step back and slow down and see how is this thing going. If this is so hard, maybe there is a easier way to do it. Maybe that's not going to be the strategy. We need to change the strategy, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? And you should be flexible. And I think if you have this kind of a mindset, and you're investing as much as possible to evolve your value proposition, rather to be stubborn and to have a lot of ego, that wouldn't, you're going to just destruct yourself. So try to be flexible, and not to be super in love with your ideas if they don't work, because that will be tough.
what's your view in regards to advisors of the company? So what
Oh, I think advisors are I would only take advice with people that have skin in the game. I mean, try, if you find somebody really exciting, if he's not willing to invest, I don't know, why would we trust his advice? I mean, if this guy really would be an advisor, he should be able to invest and support you. Otherwise, advising is very cheap. I mean, everybody can do it. But you need to, be conscious of your time and resources. And, I think that's the way I think about it. You can always seek for advice for other people, like to try to, understand the outside reality of how that's being perceived. But I think unless these people are into the business, vested or care about you succeeding, it would be really hard for them to give you really real advice and that can really wake you up and allow you.
Did you have any advisors on your team slide in your decks throughout the years?
So all the people I had as people on my slide decks were angels. So every person that was on any of those decks was people that invested. Investors are, free to find, but having those people investing money is signaling. Advising is nothing. That doesn't give you any credit. Everybody can find some people with fancy titles, but getting them convinced that this is worth it is much harder. And I think that's the way I think about it.
But throughout the years, all of these years, so not just from 2018, did you ever receive a piece of advice that really hit you and you really received as a game changer in what you did?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I have received this many times, but with people that were very into what we were building or what I was doing as a business, and or those were people that were very close to me, where they had the context, and they have seen me through different stages where they were able to give me advice. But I think it's a very generic answer. So I would say very generic question. Of course, I mean, there have been advice on many levels, but if we're talking about advice about product or strategy or fundraising, I think this is good to happen once or twice when you are doing such kind of a session where you just learn from somebody, but I don't consider this advising. I consider this kind of a, knowledge sharing. Advising is somebody that you do one-on-one, where you try to meet regularly and talk about things. And again, I mean, I would say for a startup, unless these people invest, I don't think so. Otherwise, advice is cheap.
I can see Veronica had a question, and we're gearing towards 2-3 minutes left of the conversation.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Hristo. So you were saying that in the very beginnings, you basically were wearing quite a few hats. Besides being the CEO, the product guy, the fundraising owner, you also were the sales guy. And I guess you were the only one doing the sales, right? So you were the one who was actually bringing the first customers?
So I started selling, obviously, from day one of the company. I have been selling to understand whether this thing is sellable. And as soon as we got to a stage where I got 10, 12 people excited of what we are about to build with wireframes, I got a sales guy.
I see. Okay, and from these beginnings, when you were also doing sales, is there some best practice or something that really helped you succeed and bring the first customers that you could share with us?
I mean, I'm a big fan of the very basic things like the lean startup methodology, go out of the building, Steve Blank, go talk to customers, and so that were kind of the resources I was thinking about. Like, you just go and get in front of the customer, try to convince him this is worth it, and if the person is not excited, not willing to talk, change it, because you can. Especially early on, it's just an idea, a prototype. As I said at the beginning, the world is a canvas. So yeah.
Love it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I didn't read sales books, if you ask me about this, like spin selling or some of those things. No. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
you're
really
you're
like
selling
the
your
action
idea.
level.
You're selling your idea.
Mhm.
You should not sound like a salesperson. Like that should be something that is inside of you, and you really believe so much into it that you need to get them literally infected with that passion. I know infection right now is not a good word these days, but literally you need to get them passionate as well. And by the way, some of the first customers might be, and those are some of the best customers. They might not have that much of a pain point, but they really get the idea, and they're willing to be a customer, just to support you, right? And this is something that we speak internally in the ecosystem a lot, that we need to constantly use our products if we want the ecosystem to get better. Which is something that the French guys are doing extremely well, right? Nobody buys it if it's not French. And that boosts their ecosystem extremely well. And, internal dog fooding, using our products as much as possible if they're relevant is amazing support for an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean to involve even buying the product. It's just trying to use the product is big enough.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cool. So, guys, I think our time is up with Hristo. If you do have like 1 minute for that wrap-up question for the interview purpose, that's fine. If not, we've got enough, more than enough, taking out of the last 1.5 hours. So it's up to you if you can stay for 1 or 2 more minutes for a final question. But if not, thank you so much for sharing everything that you have. It was, a lesson of honesty and true, exactly, expected in regards to fundraising stories and hearing straight from of how it was, and the good and the bad. So that's super appreciated. And I'm pretty sure from the reactions that the founders have, they'll digest what you said. And I think, the conversation with you, at least from my point of view, gives a spark of motivation. And it really gives a sense of if you persevere, and if you've got, a strategy in mind, and if you've got an agenda and not just, going out randomly with some sort of not knowing exactly where to head to, but if you stick your mind to a strategy, then you can make it happen.
Good. So thanks for the invitation. Hopefully that was valuable.
Absolutely.
Definitely. It spread, it spoke camaraderie all over the session. Thanks so much.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Should we stay now, by the way, for the session, or do we use another link?
No, it's
Okay.
Literally. So as I said, I think the most of the questions were already asked. So probably just a wrap up question in regards to your general thoughts around the market. So in regards to fintech in particular, how would you describe current state of the fintech sector, if you want to take it from Eastern Europe and then European, and let's maybe stop there, because if you go global, so how would you describe the current state of the fintech market, and where's the hype right now?
So I think the current state of the market, of the fintech market, is that in general it is a function of the economies. So if you look at how the economics are currently progressing, there has been a big boost of let's say swift change from offline payments to online payments, and that does require a lot more modern tools to manage that. So I think that's where fintechs was growing and expanding because of some regulatory changes that Europe did in the last 7-8 years that have been in the works for the last 15 years. But things started accelerating with the pandemic, and that required much faster movement of payments that happened online. So that actually started requiring a lot more tools necessary to that. And the other thing is we also see that from market analysis that, for example, the cards market and the payment market continues to grow. A lot more countries move from paying in cash to online payments and to actually digital payments. A lot of countries introduce legislation to drop away, paper and to move to digital as well. So all of this is supporting the fintech ecosystem, which is actually kind of the last mile delivery. So the other thing with the fintech ecosystem is that still right now it is very fragmented, right? Every country, currency, different regulations, and the other thing that happens on the market is that there is also a lot of excitement with VCs and a lot of movement of capital right now. So especially after the pandemic, things in 2021 right now are very much accelerating. If you look at the number of investments being made in the space, and that allows the creation of a lot of activity on the infrastructure side. So these kind of a complex, disconnected regulatory frameworks and currency and countries right now, we see more and more maturity of the infrastructure, which is going to spark a lot more companies stepping on those infrastructures and doing the last mile delivery of the services to the consumers or to the businesses. That is going to be a lot more efficient on completely new rails than what we have seen so far. So this is how how I would describe it.
That sounds really good. So Hristo, I think we can literally wrap it up here. It's a huge thank you from us.
Okay.
We'd love to keep you in the loop with what's happening, on our end. Of course, we won't stress you out with from all 42 teams. But no, I'm talking generally from the HowTheWeb team perspective. So we'd love to stay in touch. And if there's anything we can do for you in regards to anything whatsoever, so consider it.
Yeah, I would say the first thing is please don't share a lot that presentation with the numbers until we go out with the round. But other than that, everything is good.
Nothing shared, absolutely. So
Yeah.
this is all internal. The session was recorded just for the
Yes.
teams. So it's gonna be kept private, and everything
Okay, perfect.
we'll extract out of the conversation that we had with you is
non-essential. Yeah.
yeah, it will be literally the the highlights of your
Okay.
advice given to founders. So anything that goes public
Perfect.
won't have sensitive information in it.
Okay, perfect. Good. So thanks for having me, and hopefully that was valuable, and let's keep in touch.
We'll do that, and congratulations.
Thank you. Bye.
Congratulations for the next round. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Foarte fain, îmi și pare rău că am